there's some nice accoutrements, some nice decorations in the truck, right?
The pedophile photos of one child duct taped around the cab.
Yeah, the pedo montage that all the other truckers who don't know that Hawk has a kid, like, okay, who's that boy? Let's not touch it.
No wonder they want to arm wrestle and beat his ass every time he goes to a truck stop.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love and growing up are really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, man, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene, Pride of the Teamsters Lions.
I want to give you what's inside of me.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out our race car VHS tape rewinders and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. That being said, Big D, we just celebrated Christmas together. I'm here in Florida after being in Kewanee, Illinois for the holidays. We're recording together in your podcast studio. Gene's on the camera. This was your first Christmas that you actually celebrated with Emma. How'd it go?
It went well. I spent about 2.5 hours putting together a large Barbie doll house, but she enjoyed it. It was nice. Got to spend time with friends and family. So I can't complain. It was nice.
Gene, how was your holiday?
It was wonderful, Raj. I spent Christmas away from family, which was great. I had Christmas Eve with family, but Christmas was very quiet. So it was a nice contrast. I got straight out of the hot tub and jumped right in the pool. It was wonderful, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was allowed some extra nutrients this week for my meal plan. So that was very, very exciting. I had beer and I had a slice of pizza. So I'm living the life, man. I'm living the dream.
Let me tell you something. If you've never been to a Midwest town in America, it is a sight to be seen. There are still video stores in the Midwest. There's this place called Family Video. I posted on Twitter, has over 500 locations that still exist in the Midwest. It's like stepping back in time.
Well, Raj, I'll have you know that I once lived in a little town called Lima, Ohio, and we had not one, but 2 family videos. And it was the place to be on Friday night. The place was packed.
Yeah, I feel like its target audience is that mid-America audience. You know, the people who live in the hog capital of the world, which is Kewanee, Illinois. They want military schools, they want big rig truckers, and they want arm wrestling championships. Like, that's what they desire. And that brings us to tonight's movie, Big D.
Yeah, and this movie is what I desire. This is a post-Christmas gift for me. I was so excited when it came in. It's one of our longtime listeners and one of our active Twitter members of the Shat universe. And it was Fabian N. He is an Aussie living in Canada. And for some reason, he said, you guys have to do the 1987 Sylvester Stallone classic, Over the Top.
Yeah, and anytime someone supports the podcast by sending in their hard-earned dollars, we ask them to send in a letter describing why they donated in support of the podcast. And Gene, you always take the liberty of reading that letter, and you have that in front of you.
I do, Raj. Fabian writes in, Shat Gang, I've been meaning to do a commission for a while. I stumbled upon your Game of Thrones Season 8 series review and love the way you guys geeked out over the show, its characters, plot, and shortcomings. Once Season 8 ended, I yearned for more Dick, as well as Gene and Roger, and happily stumbled upon Shat the Movies. I've since worked my way back through your entire back catalog during my daily commute in Calgary and the frequent business trips I have over to Asia. It's been a good time. Anyhow, There's one movie I've always wanted reviewed, and I figured it's also time I throw a few loonies into the jar for all the hours of enjoyment I've gotten thus far. My movie request then is Over the Top, the 1987 arm wrestling classic. I have so many fond memories of this film growing up. My dad was a big Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Willis, Van Damme, and Seagal fan, so I watched a lot of action movies growing up. I love the great training montages a lot of the Stallone films had. Hence, I think Rocky IV is the best of the series, and this film has those in spades. The soundtrack is great. Kenny Loggins, Sammy Hagar. The characters are extra tacky, and the interviews during the wrestling championships are hilarious. I can readily admit that the overall plot is weak, the father-son storyline not terribly original, and probably unrealistic at the end, but who cares? This film has taken on the task of making an arm wrestling film fun, and it does just that. It doesn't take itself seriously, though to also recognize that 90 minutes of arm wrestling might be a bit much for most armchair enthusiasts, hence pass it out with father-son bonding, dawn stretching sessions, and the token evil grandfather. When I describe this film to people, I tell them deadpan that he wanted to win the world championship of arm wrestling, but what he wanted to win more was the heart of his son. Rotten Tomatoes has this film at 40%, which would put it around 3 Shat wipes. I'm hoping you guys see more value in it than that. I'll leave you with one last thought of a longer than planned ramble. What movie since 1987 has taken a more obscure sport than arm wrestling as its core plot, perhaps dodgeball? It was audacious at the time, probably never to be repeated, and for that alone, it deserves a special place in the pantheon of Shat. All the best, lads. Keep doing your thing from a loyal listener and equally loyal Spurs supporter. Sorry, Gene. Oof. Fabian Niebuhr, an Aussie living in Canada. P.S. If you guessed the commission from the subject title, bravo.
Well, Over the Top is a 1987 American sports drama film starring Sylvester Stallone. The screenplay was written by Sterling Siliphant and Stallone, with original music score composed by Giorgio Moroder. The main character, Lincoln Hawk, played by Stallone, is a long-haul truck driver who tries to win back his alienated son, Michael, while becoming a champion arm wrestler. Over the Top was released by Warner Brothers in 1987 on February the 12th in New York and Los Angeles before expanding to over 1,700 theaters, grossing $5.1 million over President's Day weekend, finishing in 4th place. In total, the film earned $11.5 million in the US and Canada. Variety magazine called it routinely made in every respect, and Janet Maslin of the New York Times called it muddled and criticized the number of product placements. The film did receive 3 nominations at the 8th Golden Raspberry Awards in 1988. David Mendenhall won 2 for both Worst Supporting Actor and Worst New Star, and Sylvester Stallone was nominated for Worst Actor, which he lost to Bill Cosby for Leonard Part 6. Sylvester Stallone literally pinned critic Roger Ebert against a slot machine to talk to him and told him it was okay to criticize the movie, but not him. We always ask the question before we start diving into the plot and the review of the movie. Where were you? What are your first memories of Over the Top? We'll start with you, Big D.
So I was 14 when this came out, and I can remember theater hopping and seeing this and then Mannequin. So that was a kind of an odd double feature, but Sylvester Stallone to me when I was a kid at that age, he was everything that a man could be. He was confident. He was physically fit. I watched his movies all the time. I thought I would love to be like him. So this movie was a must for me. I thought I was going to get Rambo or Rocky, but instead I got a truck driver. But I still enjoyed it and remember it to today.
What about you, Gene? Have you seen Over the Top?
First of all, Raj, I want to make that my new policy when we get reviews on Apple Podcasts for Shat on TV or Shat the Movies. You can criticize the podcast, but don't criticize me. I was 7 when Over the Top came out, so I had no vote in my household about what we watched. I was completely at the mercy of my family. And my older cousin Pej, he was 12 years older. So when we first got our VCR, he was the one who controlled that in the house. And he would get these movies like American Ninja or Over the Top. And he would just always forward to the action. Like he'd fast forward to the action. So I never got to see what the story was all about. So all I saw this movie growing up was the arm wrestling scenes. And up until this watch, I had no idea that there was a storyline about his dad and his son. I thought it was just like Big D said, Sylvester Stallone looking like a badass and sweating a lot.
Yeah. There were two movies that were routinely on HBO. I remember vividly as a kid. One was Mannequin, which I can't wait to review that on this podcast. The other one was Over the Top. And just like the Santa Claus, which what we did for our Shat Christmas, that was tailor-made for a nostalgic Roger Roper due to its themes of divorce and a father longing to spend time with his kid. This movie, the axe moved even closer to the bullseye and the target because my late father was a long-haul truck driver. In fact, many of my best memories were of my dad's trucks. And you said you looked up to Stallone as a real man. Well, my dad was that real man. He could drive just about any machine, whether it was a semi-truck, motorcycles. He used to race them, boats. We always grew up on boats, or even bulldozers and heavy construction machinery. My dad could just do it. And most of his life was in and around trucks. He owned a dump truck company for a while before becoming an owner-operator, long-haul trucker. He had the decked out Peterbilt. My dad chromed out everything. Everything was the highest. And even when he sold his truck and then moved into semi-retirement, doing concert series and the LPGA, it was great. In fact, we bonded a lot when I moved out to Arizona because he would always come through I-10. He'd park at the Pilot Flying J, and I'd go pick him up and hang out with him. And he's not here, so I only have movies like this to take me back. With that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
What are the odds on Lincoln Hawks pitch?
20 to 1, pal, with a long shot.
Locks? Let's go.
The world meets nobody halfway. Remember that.
I don't have a father, sir.
The world has always bet against Lincoln Hawks.
This guy's nothing.
Why'd you leave us?
It won't happen again.
I want my grandson found. I don't care how you do it. Do it.
But a winner never listens to the odds.
Whatever happens, I want you to stay with him.
Where'd we end up?
Together is all I can guarantee.
You ain't got a prayer in Vegas.
You never had anything, so you have nothing to lose.
All I want to do is hurt him, cripple him, get him off the table.
All I care about is you. You're my boy. You understand?
The world beats nobody halfway. Now is the time to do for yourself.
I want you.
Over the top, Dad! Over the top!
Sylvester Stallone, Over the Top.
Lincoln Hawk is a trucker who arm wrestles on the side to make extra cash while trying to rebuild his life. Hawk's estranged wife, Christina, asks Hawk to pick up their 10-year-old son, Michael, from military school so that the two of them can get to know each other. Hawk had left them 10 years earlier, and Michael's controlling grandfather, Jason Cutler, is a wealthy man who hates Hawk and disapproved of his daughter's relationship with him, believing that Hawk has no right to be in his grandson's life. Michael is very bitter towards Hawk and treats him with contempt at every turn.
So as a kid watching this movie, I remember thinking, I want Stallone to be my dad. And why is Michael being such a shit? I really thought Michael was this spoiled little brat. But watching it today, Michael's he's pretty logical. He's realistic. Hawk, who he thinks is this deadbeat dad, he shows up fucking late to the most important day of Michael's life. He spends all day cleaning the truck. He's armor rolling the tires. Mike is right to ask, Dad, do you think you're going to make up for 2 years in 3 days? I don't blame him for freaking out at all. If I didn't hear from my dad in 10 years, I would also be as upset as he is.
Yeah, but he wants to put on a good first impression. He wants to wash his old truck, which, by the way, it doesn't look any better than what it does. But that was my dad. My dad was always washing his truck and making it look really good. But the one thing that bothered me more than just his tardiness, which, by the way, Hawk is late to every event. He's late to the funeral. He's late to his son's graduation. But the other thing that really bothered me is throughout the entire movie, characters are calling them Hawks, as if there's an S at the end of the name, even though we see on the side of the truck, it's Hawk hauling. So is it Hawk or Hawks? Did you guys pick up on this as well? Was this changed in post?
No, I think they're just truck drivers. I don't think they really can retain too much information. What his name? His name's Hawks? Okay, I'm going to call him Hawks. But you know what? The early 80s were the only time, thinking back to it now, that a young boy could be fleeing from a man in a truck across a highway screaming, "Get away from me," and nobody will stop. No passerby seem to be concerned.
Yeah, the 80s were very different. I mean, not only is, Michael's attending like this rich military school, but his proof that he's his father, again, you have to kind of question the military school, is he pulls out a photo of their wedding. And then when he gets in the car, there's like pictures of him at different various stages of age, just being all crazy. And like, again, in the 80s, I guess it was just perfectly acceptable to see a trucker chase down a young boy across heavy traffic.
Yeah, that's about as child abduction a sight as you're ever going to see in public. Like, that's the textbook, what they probably train police officers. Like, that's what a child abduction looks like. But maybe it's just the 80s, because also the guy with the limo that shows up to escort Michael also looks incredibly pedophilic. He's like, "Hello, Michael, get it. We have candy inside." But Raj, you mentioned the military school as being a rich military school. Like, that's something weird. I was looking into this, and this is actually one of the few movies that gets military school right. Like, in movies that we've seen, it's always military school is like this place that you send troubled kids or something that you use as punishment. But military school is kind of prestigious, and they're not cheap. The average cost of military school right now ranges from $30,000 to $40,000 a year for the kid, where Big D, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that raising a kid normally in your household costs about 10 grand a year. So it's 3 times as expensive. Now, granted, that includes room, board, tuition, spending money, associated fees, uniforms, all that stuff. But still, you got to have some serious change in your pocket to send your kid to military school.
I thought just all the people there were being dicks, because as Hawk walks up, he got himself done, his best jeans, he's got his suspenders on, he's got like a denim button down, looks like a Blockbuster employee. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, who's that? Who's that?" I thought they were just being snobbish, that they were saying he looked like the help. Mm-hmm. Maybe they thought he was there to abduct a child.
I mean, I don't know. I get the feeling, because I was looking at all the other cars, and I guess that's visually what they're trying to say in the story, is that amongst this very prestigious, rich limos and Jaguars and Mercedes that are picking up their military school brats that they're spending this copious amounts of money on, here comes this dude with a clip-on tie and his big ass, day rig. And what is he doing here? Oh, scoff. Oh, he doesn't look like he belongs here. What's going on?
But he's just the average trucker, I guess. I've never really known a trucker. I had the honor of speaking with your father once before we recorded a cast. He was a good dude. But, I've always thought, and I don't want to insult truckers out there, but this is the one job, really, I would never want to do. I think it would be mind-numbing to sit on the road for 8 hours a day, or however many hours they drive.
It's exactly 8.
Drinking Jolt Cola, some crystal meth and whatever they do to stay awake.
Yeah, they do.
But it would be cool to see the country, and I think it's an honest living. But Michael is a bit of a dick. He's calling his dad uneducated. He's calling his truck disgusting. Yeah, it's not a fancy truck, but there's some nice accoutrements, some nice decorations in the truck, right?
The pedophile photos of one child duct taped around the cab.
Yeah, the pedo montage that all the other truckers who don't know that Hawk has a kid, like, okay, who's that boy? Let's not touch it.
No wonder they want to arm wrestle and beat his ass every time he goes to a truck stop.
Exactly. But Roger, I want to know, did your father take you on rides? Did he go out there and, we're going to go take a haul from here to Tuscaloosa? Did you think he was a meathead?
Yeah. I mean, admittedly so. I was a soft child. I was, dumb. Yeah, I know, right? I was. Mom sheltered me a lot, and I was very smart and kind of like a brainiac and all that kind of stuff. And Dad was the opposite. Dad was one who wanted me to become a man and learn how to do man stuff. And I couldn't tell my mom a lot of the stuff that my dad and I would do. We would ride 3-wheelers. He'd take me up to the farm. He'd have me learn how to drive stick on the Jeep and in his big trucks. But yeah, he would drive me around in his dump trucks and in his long haul rig. And I gotta say something here. That rig that Stallone is driving, the Hawk is driving, that's a day rig. that is not meant for long haul trucking. My father's truck was much more sweet, like kind of the Volvo rig that he wins at the end. Although my dad would never drive a Volvo. He always drove Peterbilts. He had the nice sleeper cab. He had the refrigerator. Like, my dad did it like really, really nice. In fact, you asked me how much do these trucks cost? They, on average, I think my dad's truck was about $150,000 before customization, brand new out of the gate. They go low. Obviously, they put a lot of miles on them and stuff like that in the used market. But in terms of truck driving, Big D, for people who are uneducated or have high school degrees or come out of the military, truck driving is a top 5 job in America. And it's the most amount of money that those individuals can make from an economic scale. And that's why this Robert Loggia character, I kind of hate him, because this was my grandmother. My grandmother was Robert Loggia on my mom's side. This, as the story goes, my grandfather on my dad's side was from Alabama. He was a self-built man who moved from farming to construction. And the 3 sons, including my father, worked for him in the company. My parents, my mom and my father, met during the construction of my grandfather on my mom's side's house. Well, as a part of the construction business, especially being in the area of Daytona and Ormond Beach and Holly Hill, there's a lot of septic tanks. Well, my father spun off some of the services of J.K. Shire and Sons to septic tank cleaning and was making great money. He had a few trucks that he managed, but this was viewed as beneath my grandmother. You know, my grandmother could not have her daughter married to someone who ran septic tank trucks. And so this drove a wedge into my mom and dad, which partly led to them being divorced at a young age and being separated. So I hate this Robert Loggia character.
Raj, no offense to Fabian here, but I think what you just described is a better movie than Over the Top. This is sort of it's like a Titanic meets Dirty Dancing meets honeypot cleaning. I really like what's going on here. I'd watch that. I would watch that romance.
I don't think the music, it would be hard to find a soundtrack that would go with that.
Yeah, it'd be basically like what my neighbors played all weekend I live in a Mexican neighborhood, guys. It's fucking awesome around Christmas. Anyway, the soundtrack for this movie is the secret star, right? Like, people talk about Over the Top, and we often think about Sylvester Stallone, arm wrestling, all that stuff. I'd forgotten, with the exception of the title track, Over the Top, how good this soundtrack was. So Rita Kempley of the Washington Post knocked on this movie and said it wasn't quite rocky because it was, quote, virtually a feature-length video, basically saying this was like MTV fodder. It's not exactly a film. And Stallone, in hindsight, said 2 things about this movie. 1, I would have made it less glossy. So let that one sit in for a while, and set it in a more urban environment, for one.
Yeah.
But also, he says, I wouldn't have used this never-ending stream of rock songs. I would have used scored music instead. Now, here's the thing. You got, Sammy Hagar, as we mentioned. You got Kenny Loggins. But the score of the movie is actually done by none other than the synth community's darling, Giorgio Moroder, our friend from Scarface. And so I knew in watching this movie, I was like, I like something about this sound. I felt my ass shaking on the couch a little bit. Giorgio Moroder, baby.
Stallone says all of the rock music. Okay, Kenny Loggins, he's the master of the soundtrack. He did the song for Footloose, Top Gun, this. I like Kenny Loggins. He's 80s. But Meet Me Halfway, they play it no less than 5 times. Anytime there's a down, sad moment, we have to just get beaten over the head with this emotional crutch.
I do feel like they should have swapped this song with Top Gun, taken Danger Zone over here, and then because then you'd be like, Meet Me Halfway Across the Sky. It's like Maverick losing Goose. And then the highway to the Danger Zone. That's where Hawk's going.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's much better. Well, over the course of a trip from Colorado to California, Michael comes to trust Hawk, especially after Hawk rescues him from kidnappers who were actually goons hired by Cutler, his grandfather, to retrieve Mike. Hawk and Mike also bond when Hawk teaches him to arm wrestle and drive the truck. However, when they arrive at the hospital, Hawk is despondent to learn that they have arrived too late, as Christina, Michael's mom, has died from surgery complications.
So I can't believe I'm going to come to the defense of Michael here, but he's played by David Mendenhall, and I think it's a shame that he won those 2 Razzies. He's not that bad to me. He's a cute kid. He is one of those kids that you're like, oh man, I'm sound like a pedo myself. Like, oh, I want to see what he looks like as an adult. that cuteness did not carry into adulthood, but he did so many of like the TV series that we grew up with. He did Punky Brewster, G.I. Joe, Different Strokes he was on, Rainbow Bright, Magnum P.I., Transformers, Roseanne. This kid was everywhere. And I think without his performance, there's a genuine caring in nature to him. I think the story just would have fallen apart.
Well, the problem is, we made the comment about how like there was a Shelley Duvall type in the early 80s, and then there was like a Natalie Portman, Keira Knightley type in the early 2000s. Well, I think in the 80s, there was that David Mendenhall type, right? Because every kid, whether it was like E.T. or Flight of the Navigator or even Goonies, they all kind of looked like him. But David Mendenhall, you say that he was all over the place. He actually was the voice of David in Transformers the movie, which I still feel is the best Transformers adaptation.
Guys, all I took away from this kid, Michael, is he's, to me, the most likable 80s movies kid. Like, move over, Ralph Macchio. Fucking, this is the kid. He's proper. He's polite. And I realized maybe after all this time, it's not that I don't want a child. It's just that I want a child who's been processed through military school. Call me sir. Warn me about my cholesterol levels. That's a good kid.
Yeah, the kid's an asshole, right? That's what you want. You want that asshole. He's talking about mental capacity, quotes like there's more to life than just muscles. But again, how would you respond if you had to drive across 3 states with some dude you had never met in your life? And once you got into the cab, there's pictures of you at various different ages, duct tape all over the cab.
Guys, we're making fun of this relationship between Stallone and his kid, or between Hawk and his kid. And I got to say that if we're going to knock one part of the movie, it's not the father-son relationship. I thought that story was actually pretty good. It's the arm wrestling that's pretty ridiculous. And at this point in the movie, we start getting introduced to this world of arm wrestling. And what's weird is it's a movie about arm wrestling whose weakest point is the arm wrestling. Now, if you think about something like Rocky, which I think is what Stallone was trying to do, is capture lightning in a bottle again. And despite all the Rocky sequels, he wanted to make something kind of like Rocky, but Rocky had boxing, and boxing is interesting and exciting. It's impossible to make suck. Arm wrestling, on the other hand, is inherently boring. Like, how do you make it fun? You can't.
I don't know. As a kid, I thought there was some underground movement. Like every truck stop, I would stop with my parents. There was people in the back arm wrestling. People were getting called out. I thought it could be real. But I think if you made this movie today and you wanted to find a sport that hadn't yet been touched by the mainstream, I think it has to be the male slapping championship. Have you guys seen this video?
Yes.
So you have seen it. Good. So it's a big thing, I guess, in Russia now. They just had the first ever actual male slapping championship in Siberia. So the rules are real simple. 2 guys come to the table. They start and alternate open hand slaps until somebody either gives up or somebody gets knocked out. I'll put a link to the video in the notes, but to me, this is exciting. If there's going to be a movie with a competition, I want to see slapping.
I mean, as long as the entire thing is done in slow motion with the Giorgio Moroder soundtrack, like I can get behind it. But Big D, here's the thing with the arm wrestling, with the slapping. Now, arm wrestling was invented, I believe, in the 50s in California. The slapping thing apparently is from Siberia. All the great martial arts or physical contests that are done between 2 people where someone has the potential of getting their arm broken off or knocked out are all not like white people sports. So boxing is Mesopotamian in origin. Wrestling comes from Greece. Kickboxing is Asian. Brazilians have jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is Japanese. What the fuck is wrong with white people? This is the best shit you guys can come up with. Let's arm wrestle and slap each other in the face.
Well, have you seen like it's Scotland or it's Ireland where they kick each other in the shins?
No, it's terrible.
Oh, it's brutal. And I want to know, Roger, okay, you're the meta man. You're the meta male.
I don't know what a meta male is.
Or what is it?
Metrosexual?
Yeah. So Roger, you're the modern day man.
Gene is way more metro than I am.
So I just want to know, would you rather, you have to go into a competition and give it your all, would you rather try arm wrestling or slapping?
I'd probably try my hand at arm wrestling first. I mean, I'd lose at both, right? But I feel like if I was training, I would probably train for arm wrestling before I do slapping. Slapping just feels like This is what happens when the vodka runs out in Siberia and there's nothing else to do. Vlad and I just slap you now.
The problem with both of these, arm wrestling, slap fighting, whatever the fuck it is there's no natural way to set it up. Like every time the arm wrestling shows up, except for the tournament, it's weird. You're just at the truck stop. Some guy challenged you to arm wrestling. Some kids are playing video games. You're going to challenge them to arm wrestling. It doesn't just happen. Like in Bruce Lee movies, Bruce Lee's going about his day doing his shit. And maybe he's working, or Jackie Chan's like doing a favor for his uncle. And then thugs always attack and you fight your way out. You don't arm wrestle your way out. Like Smasher is at the truck stop, the first guy that Lincoln's got to, arm wrestle. And he's just, what is he doing? Just sitting around the truck stop waiting all day for Hawk to show up?
Yeah.
There's three of them.
This is why I long for like the early 80s. Now truck stops are much more sanitized. You have the Pilot Flying J, you have the Loves, they're actually really nice. And they do that because there's corporate accounts attached to a lot of these trucks and they get kickbacks for using their facilities, and they're very clean and all that for the most part. Don't go to some of the bathrooms in some of the smaller cities, but the big cities, truck stops are really nice. But the problem that I have is not so much with the arm wrestling or even that it's what kind of dad is Hawk, where he finds a couple of latchkey kids playing truck stop video games and challenges them to arm wrestle the son he's never met or hung out with. Not only that, but there's just weird phrases that could mean a little bit different if you were looking through a different lens. The whole time he's wrestling this other kid, he's like, yeah, pump it up, kid, over the top, harder, come on, kid, pump it up. Like, of course that kid is going to get kidnapped. Taking him to truck stops, whoring him out to fight like Michael Vick did with dogs. Again, maybe he wasn't trying to hustle money from a kid arm wrestling. He would have made it time to the hospital before his ex-wife died.
Yeah, what the fuck was that all about? Like every time anyone I know has had surgery, like Christina's, it was scheduled. Like they would say, hey, it's going to happen at 10 a.m. like on Friday. So either this hospital is just like a walk-ins only for heart surgery, which didn't seem like it. It seemed like they were prepping her for surgery, or Hawk knew when the surgery was going to happen. It was just like, I got other shit to do. Like this wasn't like there was a car accident, everyone knew when it was happening.
No, I hate to rain on this. My brother-in-law just had his lungs and liver transplant, double transplant. You're on the call. You just have to wait for the organ to become available. So maybe they were waiting on a heart, but still at least convey that. Tell Hawk, hey, listen, they say I'm on the list. I'm next. It could be any time. Then he wouldn't be pulling over, sleeping on the side of the road. He wouldn't be, doing pull-ups or whatever he's doing, like tricep extensions against the grill of the truck. He'd actually be moving with a purpose.
Well, the problem that I have with this movie is like they just kind of introduce that he's part of this underground trucking. It's somewhat organized. It seems like arm wrestling to where there's a trucker division when they get to the championships in Las Vegas. But at no point do they have a little bit of exposition to say, hey, this is what I do on the side to make money. This is like what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make a little money, so that I could be the best dad for you. They just kind of, one half of the movie is dad, father, son bonding. The second half is arm wrestling, Karate Kid Championship.
I think they were trying to take care of that with the interaction with Bull, right? So Bull comes up and then Hawk is like, oh, no, save it for Vegas. I think that they're trying to do it very efficiently with that little tie-in.
Yeah.
But again, are you saying you want to see more of this movie? Because I think 90 minutes was plenty for me.
Yeah, it's plenty.
They cut the fat. This was like a Gene Lyons edited podcast. No fat, very trim, 90 minutes in and out. Let's get the fuck.
They don't even try to explain how they bond. It's just voiceless discussion with meet me halfway played over. They don't even try to say what they're bonding.
This is time for a montage. Well, feeling he would have been there with her if it were not for Hawk, Michael leaves for his grandfather's estate. An attempt to retrieve Michael ends with Hawk being arrested for trespassing when he resorts to ram raiding after being turned away from Cutler's gated mansion. Michael visits his father in jail and forgives him, but tells Hawk that he feels more secure living with his grandfather.
Okay, again, I can't believe I'm going to say it. I honestly enjoyed Stallone's portrayal of Lincoln Hawk. I think he's uncharacteristically, he's reserved, he's pensive. He whispers or he speaks really low, but he has a lot of good knowledge to pass on to Michael. In that jail scene, when they bring Michael in, he gives up. He says, if it's the best for you, I'm willing to do it. I know you won't have a home with me. I think Hawk he's doing his best. It's Stallone's best work. This is a cartoon caricature, but they're doing everything they can not to make him look that cartoonish.
Yeah, but why is Stallone always whispering his lines? He's like, I want to do what's best for you because the world doesn't meet anyone halfway.
I think he's like a really gentle guy at heart. Like he's got a good heart. You can't watch Rocky, the original Rocky, and not think this guy's got like a fucking heart of gold. He's so soft spoken and so endearing. It's hard not to like his characters. But the part about Hawk that bothered me is like he never really explains why he left. Like I thought we'd get that at the end. All he says is that Jason Cutler, so like Mr. Cutler, the grandpa, forced the family apart. And normally I wouldn't fixate on that, but that's kind of critical to the story. Like he left for some reason 10 years ago, and either he's a good guy or a bad guy, and it hangs on why he left.
Yeah, again, you can tell there were a lot of edits in this movie. There were montages, there were scenes or exposition that was introduced but then never fully explained. Like one of the things is that Michael, when he gets in the car and he's like, Stallone asks him, what do you know about me? And Michael goes, well, they told me that you were running drugs. And he's like, well, they're wrong about that. I think, personally, hear me out here. I think there's a whole sub-story, a subplot of this movie that was introduced, but it was left on the cutting room floor because it's never really fully explained how the grandfather got his money. Yeah, he has a little bit of a trucking company, but no trucking company owner I know, especially in the 80s, has that kind of money or that kind of power or is hiring goons to track down his kids. I think the grandfather is a drug lord, and I think Hawk was forced to transport some drugs for him unknown to Hawk, and it went wrong. And so Robert Loggia, the grandfather, sold him out and forced him away from his daughter. Like otherwise, how do you describe that house? How do you describe the goons? Again, all that money and security. He leaves Hawk no other option than to trash and ram raid that truck into the house.
Okay, so I know that Cutler's mansion kind of had sort of a Tony Montana vibe to it, but here's how I know that it wasn't drug related. Because if a movie is made in the 80s and it is drug related, there's got to be some scene in the back of the truck where someone takes a pocket knife and cuts open a bag of Coke and tastes it. And that's how you know it's drugs.
That's right. That was on the cutting room floor. I'm telling you, there is a drug kingpin to this movie. That's exactly. Where do you think he got arm wrestling? He was in the tank. He was in the clink. No, that's how he earned respect amongst the other prisoners.
No. From all the drug dealer movies we've seen, drug dealers kill people. He wouldn't be kidnapping his son. He would have Hawk dead in the bathroom of one of his truck stops.
Nah, here's the thing, though. He doesn't want to cause like emotional trauma to Michael, so he's just going to have his thugs. But there's different ways to look at it. I mean, those thugs could actually be like heroes. Like Cutler's just like, hey, can you please go rescue my kid from his fucking crazy dad? I want to get him there in time to see his mother before she dies.
You're right.
Now, Raj, you mentioned ram raiding, and I had to look that up because I was like, what the fuck is ram raiding? It is when you use a vehicle to crash into a building and loot the stuff inside. Now, in this case, Hawk uses his truck to crash through the gates of Cutler's estate and break through the fucking front door, too, and get his kid. By the way, if your livelihood is that truck, you might want to take a little bit better care of it. But I had no idea that ram raiding was prevalent enough to have its own name. But apparently this used to happen a lot at tech companies. So people would smash in and steal a bunch of the tech and then sell it on the black market or steal data in that way, like steal servers and stuff. But it's been happening since the 30s. And the term was popularized after a string of crimes. Like it really was in its heyday in 1979 in Belfast, which has nothing to do with listeners Gail or Brody. Point being is that if you're Hawk and you're trying to retain custody of your kid, and you're trying to set a good example, maybe don't go running your fucking truck into his grandfather's house. Think a little bit, Hawk.
Well, if you're going to do it, make sure you look at least good, though, and time appropriate.
I mean, his best outfit, Raj, arguably, is when he's in prison. When he's in just the jeans and the T-shirt, he looks fucking good. But there are a lot of bad looks in this movie. So Tim Salinger, that's the name of the character. That's the lawyer that like comes up to him in prison. He's like, just sign all your shit away. Has the hugest glasses I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, this was the era of the 80s that looked like absolute dog shit. The mom, Christina, granted, she's dying in the hospital, but she looks kind of like an unwashed David Bowie. Hawk's formal wear, as you mentioned, Big D, it's like that Amish chic. You could see his underwear lines through his trousers. He's got that mismatched clip-on tie, as you pointed out, Raj. The one cool look, though, other than the jeans and t-shirt, is that Bono trucker cap that Hawk's got. And I was like, I just Googled it because I want to know what Bono was. And it's a trucking company. But what's crazy is like multiple online retailers sell these hats. They're very, very popular, like a bestseller on Amazon. So if you would like to support Shat The Movies, you go to shatthemovies.com/Amazon and buy your very own Bono cap. That's BONNEAU. And a little portion of your purchase goes right to us. It's like 2 cents.
Well, after his release, Hawk leaves to compete in the World Arm Wrestling Championship in Las Vegas. His hope is to win the grand prize of $100,000. Hawk is a clear underdog and faces his old rival Bull Hurley. Hawk sells his truck and uses the money to place a bet on himself. Meanwhile, Michael finds all the letters that Hawk had sent over the years and realizes that his grandfather had been hiding the truth from him. Stunned by his grandfather's deceptions, Michael steals one of his grandfather's mini vehicles, a pickup truck, to go to Las Vegas and find Hawk.
Okay, so I understand most people we don't know anything about arm wrestling. You could tell me that there's a $5 million purse. I'd be like, well, okay, maybe. So I had to look it up. The prize that they gave away in the 86 championship was only $57,000. I guess that wouldn't be really enough to really go out there and change his life for $57,000.
Did you see if there was actually a trucker division or like a Teamster division? Someone that came out of the union, like every facet of American lifestyle, there was a champion that would fight for them. Like, again, seemingly not all competitors would be truckers, yet one of the grand prizes also like that new Volvo, sleeper cab, brand new truck, which by the way is on auction and you could have bought it a couple years back for like $60,000. But, social justice warrior Gene will like this. Did you notice that the women's purse was half of the men's? I thought that was little telltale signs of the 1980s. They were like, yeah, women's is only 50 grand. The men's, though, that's really where the championship is.
Yeah, and instead of getting a truck, they got a Volkswagen Beetle convertible. That was what they gave. But I want to know, what was the deal with those giant platform shoes? They focus on them 2 or 3 times. That is an artificial way to enhance your height to get better leverage, right? How is that not a performance enhancer?
I thought it was a racist joke because weren't they on the Asian guy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure it was like, look at the Asian guy. No. He needs lifts.
Yeah, he needs to get up there.
No way.
To the platform.
Think of arm wrestling. It's about leverage. It's about weight. It's about force. If you're a shorter guy, you're going to get dominated by Bull right away.
Okay, but hold on, Big D. I've looked up the rules of arm wrestling, and in fact, although you have to start with a foot on the ground while arm wrestling, you do not have to keep your feet on the ground. So maybe his plan was to jump up and then use all of his body weight to slam it down. I don't know. What I did find out, though, as I was watching all these guys get ready to go, a lot of guys are doing like tricep exercises. And, you see Stallone, even in his rig, he's doing his weights that he uses.
He's doing pull downs.
Cable pulls.
Yeah, he's doing cable pulls.
And I was like, why are they working their triceps? That's fucking stupid. Found out I was wrong. Triceps, biceps, forearms, and wrists are all important to arm wrestling. Credit to you, Big D. You're absolutely right. It's about the angle. So the game is really about your wrist and your shoulder positioning and where on the opponent's hand you're able to grip. Like most sports, there's a finesse to it. It's not just straight power. It's about angles. You got to break the plane of the wrist, and that'll force their arm down.
Well, we've got a way to improve the movie right away. Stallone or Hawk wants to prove he's not just this dumb trucker. If he had a conversation with Michael, you know what? It's not about force. It's about how you can use the fulcrum and your leverage to win. If they had broken it down scientifically, Michael might have had some respect for him. I think it would have been a good thing.
Yeah, I'm more than just muscles. I got to use my technique, and that's what you got to do, Michael. The world comes at you, and you got to go more than halfway.
But one thing I really did love, and I thought was way ahead of its time, were those backstage interviews that they were interweaving as they were announcing the final 8. They would cut back to an interview. I thought it was brilliant. It reminded me of every single reality show today. I felt like I was watching ESPN. I was watching ESPN today, like the World Poker Championships.
Completely agree, Big D. The interviews are fucking brilliant. And this reminded me of like Christopher Guest movies, like Best in Show, where he's doing a lot of these backstage interviews are fucking fantastic. I think you could have actually made an interesting movie about arm wrestling in a mockumentary format. These interviews are really the only part of the arm wrestling that I found interesting.
Can we talk about the character playing John Grizzly?
Hell yeah.
John Grizzly, the guy who's like drinking motor oil and chewing the cigar. John Grizzly is what the King Bee would be if he was a truck driving arm wrestler.
Oh, 100%. The way Gene has told stories about him fighting and getting his jaw broken, this is some shit that King Bee would do to look tough. He would chug the motor oil, but then they do a quick cut to him, like a 10-second clip later on, like a half an hour later, and he's chugging like 18 Alka-Seltzers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this movie is fucking guilty of the most egregious product placement in history. You've got in this what I picked up, and I'm sure there's more, was the Alka-Seltzer, the Valvoline. You've got Gold's Gym, Soloflex, Adidas, Bono, as I mentioned before, Armor All, Carl's Jr., Hilton, Toyota. Which, by the way, that was a fucking sweet ass truck.
Volvo,
Pepsi.
They say Volvo about 12 times.
Yeah, but the problem I have is who's hiding the letters. So in the house. You see a young Michael. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. I'm gonna find out the truth. And so he's searching around the house. I think in his mom's bedroom, and he looks all throughout her dressers. And I'm like, oh, what is he gonna find here? Watch out, little boy. But then he comes across this bottom drawer, and it's in a purse, and it's all the letters that Hawk had sent. And I thought the entire time it's the grandfather. The grandfather was the one that was hiding it. Who's really the asshole here? Who's really, is it the mom or is it Cutler?
Well, I mean, the mom wanted them to bond on the road, so maybe it was the grandfather's purse. Well, you got to assume things, Raj.
Oh. No, but you guys are missing the point. Fuck Hawk, he's a liar. I wrote you hundreds of times. There was not hundreds of letters in there. There was maybe 25.
That was just that purse.
I like the when they show the handwriting. It looked like a child had written it. It was kind of scribbled. I like my son.
Hey, I'm at the place.
He had to write it with his left hand because he didn't want to wear his arm out, you know?
Well, Hawk advances to the final 8 competitors in the double elimination tournament before suffering his first loss, injuring his arm in the process. Afterwards, Cutler summons Hawk to his presidential suite and tells him that he has always been a loser, but offers Hawk a way out and a chance for a fresh start, $500,000 check, and a top-of-the-line semi, even better than the contest's grand prize, on the condition that he stay out of their lives for good. Hawk refuses, though, and returns to the tournament with a much tighter focus and advances to the final match against Bull Hurley, who has remained undefeated.
They really wanted us to understand that this is a double elimination tournament.
That's right.
This is not single elimination. Right. This is double. They do it over the speakers. Word to the competitors. It is a double elimination tournament. And if we didn't know what that meant, it means you have to lose twice. You can lose once and still be the winner. I'm crystal clear that this is a double elimination tournament. They say it 4 times, right? Then why the hell do we get to the end and it turns into something else?
No, so as a host of many a Killer Queen tournament, you'd be surprised how many times you have to tell people the fucking rules of the tournament who have already paid money to be in the tournament. But you guys are absolutely correct. In a double elimination tournament, if you lose, you get dropped into a loser's bracket. So in this case, Hawk loses to Grizzly, which would move him into the loser's bracket. And then Hawk does some work down in the loser's bracket where he again runs into Grizzly. So Grizzly had to lose to someone else to shift down to the loser's bracket. So Hawk then wins that rematch, and he would have to go undefeated all the way to the grand finals, where he would face the winner of the winner's bracket, right? So that's Bull. That means Bull has not been defeated at any point in this tournament. And as you said, Big D, 4 times they say you got to lose twice. So typically in the grand finals, the person coming from the loser's bracket would have to beat the winner's bracket finalist twice, because the winner's bracket finalist has never lost. So as the movie tells us, if you lose once, you still have one more chance to win. Bull got robbed here. He should still have one more chance.
See, and I went and looked this up to see if I was the only one who had this problem. And the screenwriter has addressed it. He said that, well, if you listen, the announcer in the final says the winner here tonight right? And he's saying that we should understand that after the second round, it becomes single elimination. But that is a screenwriter's mistake. How hard would it be for him to just explicitly say it? From here on out, if you lose, you go home.
All right, I want to bring a real life example of this, Big D. There was a one pitch softball tournament that we played in on opposite teams. I had the Ball Busters and you were on Evo Sports. And Evo Sports was like the evil team, Gene, just to kind of paint a picture here. And the Ball Busters were like this scrappy team full of, friends. And we were like, we're going to win this tournament. And we won the winner's bracket. Evolution lost one game and they had to fight their way back through the loser's bracket. We met in the championship and we ultimately beat Team Evolution in the finals, in the championships. It was one of the best Saturdays of my life.
You describe us as the evil team. You were the team of misfit toys.
That's something an evil team would say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, there was no one that was coming to our softball team and offering us $500,000 if we lost in the championship, like Hawk has here, which I think maybe Hawk should have just taken this bet and left.
I think it's a quality bribe, because in a lot of Hollywood movies, people would come up and they'd be like, something laughable, like, I'll give you $50,000. And you're like, fuck, nobody's going to seriously consider that, right? But Hawk, he's already lost custody of his son. He signed away all of his rights. He can't go back to California, after he broke down the gates. What does he have to lose? He doesn't even know that his son is there at this point looking for him. I love Emma. Hawk loves Michael. But the offer of a $500,000 check and a brand new truck, I would have to seriously consider that. He could change his life, build up a company, and then go back and try to fight for Michael.
Yeah, Cutler at this point doesn't seem like that bad a guy, drug kingpin or no. Like, he sees a clear loser in Hawk, and Hawk has demonstrated a decade of being shitty. And let's be a little bit sympathetic toward Cutler. He has no other family left than Michael. His grandson is the last part of his daughter that he has in his life. And he has the means to provide for the kid and raise him to be, something great. He's got the money for the education. He can take care of him. So you're telling this grandfather, whose last remaining relative apparently is this kid, that you won't walk away? And he's offering you a very generous parting gift. I think at this point, Hawk kind of becomes the bad guy in the movie.
Well, Michael finds Hawk and apologizes for misjudging him, which gives Hawk the emotional support he needs to compete. And after a titanic struggle, Hawk manages to conquer his old rival Bull and earn his respect. As Hawk and Michael celebrate, Cutler looks on in silence and admiration for all that Hawk sacrificed to get Michael back. A triumphant Hawk and Michael take their new truck and winnings and drive off to start a new life together. End movie.
So I can't decide if I like Michael's introspection here at the end, or it kind of bothers me. He says, Dad, it doesn't matter if you lose, it's because I love you. When you're like afraid, I don't think you're talking about me. I think you're talking about yourself. Come on. Is this kid really this introspective at this point? How would the years going forward, if they were business partners, this kid could manipulate Hawk so easily.
Well, he's just got an exceptionally high EQ.
But do you think it's logical that he would be able to internalize all this? It's kind of a deep conversation that they have for a man who's hiding underneath bleachers about to arm wrestle a 380-pound sweaty trucker named Bull.
I think Sylvester Stallone obviously was a co-writer of this movie. I think there's a lot of feelings that he might have or harbor that come across in the script of maybe not always being there for his sons, or him not feeling like he was doing enough as a father. So yeah, I think maybe there was a purpose around Michael being so introspective. I could never have said that to my dad. Are you kidding me? But my dad actually made the effort. He was, through all the bullshit and through all the things, including my grandmother, trying to keep us away. The one good thing about my father is that he always wanted us to have a relationship, and he made sure that happened.
Did he sell his last remaining truck for $7,000 and put it all online against Bull Turley?
No. One thing that was the biggest regret my father did is in the early 80s, around the time of this movie, he actually sold out his stake in the company which later in the early 2000s went and sold for multi-millions of dollars. So all my cousins and everyone have trust funds and really nice big nest eggs. Unfortunately, I don't have nearly the amount of inheritance that they're going to get.
Yeah, you just have the Harley, the Jeep, the El Camino, the multiple properties, the farm.
The monthly income from the family cattle ranch, and you're boo-hooing.
I'm just saying it could have been more.
Oh, what, you wanted the septic tank millions also?
That's right. I did.
God, selfish.
I do have a free burial plot in Flushing Cemetery because my mom was smart and bought an extra large one for my dad. So that's cool.
Yeah. I've got one next to my father as well that I pre-purchased. I guess the biggest issue that I have here with this movie is not so much the introspection, it's the resolution. Because again, at this point in the movie, from a logical perspective and a narrative perspective, he has signed away his rights. So legally, he is not allowed to even be with his son. And they're talking about how they're going to start their own business. I wonder if there was a different scene there allowing where the grandfather was like, I was wrong about you, Hawk. I tested you. This was all a big giant test and you passed. You showed the resilience. And I hope that you have this relationship. Like there was that scene missing. And if you look in the background, as he's walking with Michael to the truck, he's in the background. The grandfather's in the background with two limos with his drivers and whatnot. So there's a big chunk missing from the movie there.
No, you're crazy. He conveys everything with those eyes. They have the meeting early on, and Cutler says to him, he says, he's all I have left. He's the only family I have left. He hates Hawk because number one, he thinks he's a loser. So Hawk addresses that by putting everything on the line to show him something he's good at. He's out there. He's the champion. He won the tournament. He offered him a $500,000 bribe, a truck. That's everything that Hawk would want. The fact that he turned it down. Then he saw the love that Michael had for his father at the end there. I think he gives him a looking glance. That acknowledgement is, number one, I kind of respect you. I see how my son feels about you, and maybe Michael isn't the only family I've left. Maybe we can build something more. I thought it was an elegant way in a movie about arm wrestling to kind of tie that up in a bow tie without tons of exposition.
Yeah, plus he doesn't want to drag his grandson into his drug empire.
I was going to say, that look is only one that a drug dealer, a drug kingpin would give to someone else because strength respects strength.
Well, I want to ask you a question about the finals there, right? Because Hawk is he's giving up 100 pounds to Bull. Bull has won for 5 years in a row. He's a wrecking machine. He's a bull for all intents and purposes. There's a scene where it looks like Hawk is about to lose. And yes, he does let go. That was, before they have to go to the straps. I started to think, is Hawk really out of his league here, or was Hawk being brilliant? The only thing that he had an advantage in is his cardio fitness. He looked pretty good. He looked like he worked out. Bull looks like he's, one cheeseburger away from a heart attack. Did Hawk intentionally try to use his endurance and just delay Bull to tire him out to then finally get the last kick and push and go over the top?
See, you're talking about what you think might be the advantage for Hawk, and you're talking about endurance. His advantage is the love of his son, Big D. What changes things for him? What turns the tide? It's when Michael gives him that pep talk. That's what changes things for him. But regarding the letting go, in arm wrestling, that is called a slip, and it's just counted as a foul, surprisingly. So you get 3 fouls. You see Bull uses his to punch Hawk in the face. But yeah, you get 3 fouls before you're out in wrestling, and it's pretty much up to the ref. So it's a good thing they had fucking 6 of them in like a 5-foot diameter to watch this thing. Right. But yeah, it's technically cheating, but it's not a disqualification. It's a smart foul.
And that's why they bring out the strap. They're like, we can't have this in the finals. We're going to bring out the strap.
And the strap fits right in with the overall style dynamic of this movie. It might have failed as a narrative. It might have failed as a cinematic masterpiece, but Over the Top really influenced tough guy style for like the last few years of the 80s. I don't know if you guys experienced this the way I did. I mean, Big D, you're in a different age group, and Raj, you grew up, as you say, it's soft. But after watching this at my school, at my public school, every kid at school was going sleeveless. People were showing their nipples. where everyone was wearing their baseball caps backward. People were like obsessed with truckers, and everyone had those like grip exerciser machines. Fucking those were showing up all over school. So it had a cultural impact, if not an impact in the annals of cinema.
Were any of those individuals that were looking really tough in their new trucker attire wearing that fleece arm warmer that he wears at the end to keep his bicep and forearm warm and ready?
The one that's like the dominant image on the movie cover. Like it's like it's
the one.
If you want to know anything about this movie, it's got Sylvester Stallone. And he's got a thing on his arm. It's because he's hurt.
Is that because he's hurt? I thought it was like you would imagine that some like a tough guy like Hawk, he wouldn't have something as soft as that. He would have wrapped it like he would have taken off his flannel shirt, ripped off the sleeve, and had to wrap his arm with it. No self-respecting truck driver would have a specific arm warmer like pitchers do, that play for the Yankees.
Well, it's kind of like, golfers, they have the club warmers. Maybe it was like that. Maybe I would have seen like some kind of like a hawk design on the side of it. With wings spread, something majestic. Or maybe just an ace bandage. That probably would have worked.
Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 5 wipes is a 1980s trucker bathroom, the kind of pit stop where underage children battle it out for the admiration of their fathers in arm wrestling. 0 wipes is a brand new Pilot J corporate bathroom where you can get a hot wash, a shave, a shower, and not be constantly approached by lot lizards. So 0 wipes is good. 5 wipes is bad. We'll start with you, Big D. How many wipes do you give over the top?
So this movie holds a place in my heart. And yes, it's full of cliches. It takes itself and arm wrestling way too seriously. But if you're like me, if you saw this at the right age, I was 13, I think it's right in that perfect zone for you. And if you watch it today and you're in the right frame of mind, I think it's definitely easy and worth killing an hour and a half on TBS. You just got to turn your brain off, and flip the switch. You get it? Flip
the switch, turn your hat back.
If you're willing to do that and you don't want to look for something really deep, it's got a good story. The performances are enjoyable, and it's good to just see ridiculous 80s arm wrestling and sweaty men. For me, I think this is a 3 wipe movie. It's not average, but it's definitely not worth throwing into the $2 bin at your Flying J.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more along the lines with you, Big D. This is definitely a bad movie, but it's a bad, enjoyable movie. Again, if it's for me purposefully, again, being selfish here, I enjoyed it, if nothing else, other than to remember my truck driving father and remember those times that we spent on his rig and the time that he would come out and visit me in Arizona and all the times growing up with him and rekindling, making sure that there was always that father-son bond. I found that better than the comically ridiculous plot involving arm wrestling. So it's a bad, good movie. It's one that you can watch on Amazon Prime if you have an Amazon Prime membership. That's where I watched this one. I'm slightly below you, though, Big D. I think it's 3.5 wipes. I'm going to tend to agree with most of the ratings on Rotten Tomato. 3.5 for me. That leaves you, Gene. How many wipes do you give over the top?
Raj, I got to agree with the two of you. Arm wrestling is just impossible to make interesting. It's just hard to do. The only way they could have done it is, as Big D said, kind of have sort of behind the scenes documentary with interviews. I think that would have made it like sort of interesting. But Stallone's going back to the well here. He's got that formula of positioning a lovable loser with one very specific talent and having that guy connect with a lonely muse. And it just plain works. I mean, Lincoln Hawk is a deadbeat, but you can't help but enjoy his relationship with, I think, a very likable Michael. Again, I think it's a travesty that this kid won a raspberry for this. I thought he did pretty well. But the climax ultimately is still about arm wrestling. The plot is soup thin, and the devices are repetitive. I felt like I was just watching a movie on a spin cycle. So it's an average movie with some really memorable moments. I'm glad it was made. I think it's one of those 80s quirky things that you're just like, fuck, remember that time they made Over the Top, that arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone and trucking? they had to throw in the trucking thing too. It wasn't about one or the other. Yeah. So anyway, it's, it is a relic of the 80s, and I think it's a perfectly average movie. So I'm going to go with 2.5 wipes.
I will say this. You can get the hat, like you mentioned, on Amazon or other fine retailers, which it's in my cart right now. Maybe it'll be a little Shat New Year's gifts for all of us. But also the logo over the top for the movie. Yeah. I'm not talking about just the artwork. The artwork is badass, but I'm just saying the logo over the top is badass. Like almost, it kind of looks like a Spinal Tap. It has that same kind of font.
Yeah,
but it looks really good. And I
it's a rockin' movie.
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a T-shirt, cutting off the sleeves of that, and putting on my Bono trucking hat and going out to the clubs in Old Town. So I might do that. Well, with that being said, we have 2.5 from Gene, 3.5 from me, and 3 from Big D. If we were to add up and divide by 3, that gives us our overall Shat rating, which is what, Gene?
Raj, this lines up perfectly with Big D's score of 3 wipes average for Over the Top.
And Big D, if we were to compare 3 wipes for Over the Top against all the movies we've reviewed here at Shat the Movies, where does it rank in the pantheon of Shat?
So this is now movie 138, and it ties it in the 94 spot with Christmas Vacation, Commando, Revenge of the Nerds, Blade Runner, and The Boondock Saints.
Carrie's head just exploded somewhere out there. Blade Runner, now I feel like an asshole. Commando, though, makes perfect sense. This is the Commando of arm wrestling.
This is the Commando of arm wrestling. That's right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that feels right. I mean, it certainly shouldn't be over the top of Commando at all. On our last podcast, Big D, you had mentioned that we're clearing out some of our voicemails as part of our shout-outs section, which our shout-out, you can go to the website and you can fill out the form that pops out and get a shout-out, get your name read here on the podcast, or you can call in to our hotline, which is 914-719-SHAT, 914-719-SHAT, and leave us a voicemail. Big D, do we have any voicemails this week?
Yes, I think 2 weeks ago I threw down the gauntlet and challenged the people who fill out the shout-outs and put in all their funny names to call up. So we got a bunch of voicemails, and we're going to play one today. And this one comes all the way from Canada and from one of our listeners, Riley.
Hey there, this is Riley Geddes from Canada, from London, Ontario. Just wanted to let you guys know that I enjoy listening to the podcast. You guys help me get through 5.5 hours of work every day. I work at an eating disorder clinic. It's not a clean eating disorder clinic. It's not the greatest job in the world, but it pays the bills, and I listen to your podcast on a daily basis. You guys make it fly by pretty fast, and just want to say thank you guys for making my job a little bit more entertaining each day. Once again, thank you very much, and you guys have yourself a good one. Bye.
Oh, I feel like we have a lot of listeners who have either really bad jobs or jobs where they need some sort of escape.
Well, I just picture people at work, because obviously we've heard a lot now that people incorporate us into their work day.
Yeah.
That, people like you could be at a law firm and they're like, oh, he must be on a call. He's listening to something very important.
Right. He's got his earbuds in.
And meanwhile, they're listening
to us idiots
talk about, the Santa Claus or talk about Gene rubbing himself nude against the inside of his sleeping bag. So it is very nice to hear that people let us into their lives. We're glad, Riley, that we could make your workday a little bit better. And thank you very much for listening. We do appreciate it. And we do appreciate that everyone seems to be sharing us with their friends and family and anybody who likes 80s and 90s movies. So keep listening. We appreciate it.
I wonder if some of these people who work in like these disorder clinics, I wonder if they've ever listened to us, especially if you've gone through the back catalog. I bet they have enough material there to analyze us. I would like someone to call in and give us their breakdown of what they think is wrong with us.
I think that would be interesting. We have to have somebody who's in the field of psychology.
We have
somebody
to.
who does.
Someone's got to be out there.
Some kind of breakdown of mental issues.
Mental issues.
Yeah, if you want to break down and give us some kind of like the disc profile, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Is that the only shout out voicemail for this week?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is we're going to save one for next week and space them out. But again, if you want to, if you got the courage, if you want to flip the switch, step up to the table, put on your platform shoes, call the number.
Pump it up, kid. Pump it up. Go over the top.
It's Pump and Kick.
No, it's Pump It Up, Kid.
It's Pump and Kick.
Pump it, kid. Pump it.
No.
All right. Big D, we are back into support mode. We got some commissions to start the new year. What movie do we have upcoming to kick off 2020?
The plot of the movie that we're going to cover next week. Deidre puts together a team of experts that she tasked with stealing a valuable briefcase, the contents of which are a mystery. The international team includes Sam, an ex-intelligence officer, along with Vincent, Gregory, and others. As their operation gets underway, several team members are found to be untrustworthy, and everyone must complete the mission with a watchful eye on everyone else. It was commissioned by Ken C. It came out in September of 1998, and it made $70 million at the box office. I have seen this one, and I don't have too great tactical memories of it. I did watch this when I was in the military, so it'll be interesting to revisit it now.
I remember watching this once in college, and that was it. It was not very memorable. But Ken C., thanks for commissioning and supporting the podcast. That does it for this episode here at Shat The Movies. Thank you so much for listening. Again, thank you, Fabian N., the Aussie living in Canada, for your support. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle at Shat The Movies. You can also search for Shat The Movies on Facebook. You can email us your suggestions or thoughts at hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can find all of our links, past episodes, support for the podcast, instructions on how to commission a movie at our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, Black Lightning, Birds of Prey, This Is Us, and NCIS New Orleans. You can check out all the information on the website, shatontv.com. You can also check out all of our cool merchandise using our promo code SHAT20 to save 20% off. Just go to our website, shatthemovies.com/shop, and you can find all the cool Shat gear. Buy something for yourself. If you didn't get the Christmas present you wanted, you can get a mug, some stickers, some t-shirts, all the really cool designs on our web store. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene, Pride of the Teamsters Lions, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
Did you ever kill anybody?
I hurt somebody's feelings once.
5 professionals.
Oh, I know you.
I don't think so.
It's a small world.
Not in my experience.
Hired for a mission.
This is what we're after.
To recover a package.
We need to take it intact from several men who will be intent on preventing us.
Nice. My kind of job.
That some are willing to die for.
Relax, darling. Just a game.
Could you take a picture of me and my wife? Get the background.
Guy goes for the case. Other guy's protecting the principal. Oh, they're good.
And everyone is willing to kill for.
I want $100,000. I want it up front. I want another $100,000 when you get the case.
All good things come to those who wait.
Target is on the way.
We've gotten the word. We're moving.
Come on, let's go.
You don't want to go in there.
Get out of here. Walk away. Walk away. Let's go!
How did you know it was an ambush? That's the first thing they teach you.
Who taught you?
I don't remember. That's the second thing they teach you.
We've made a good plan, and we're going to stick with it.
Who's this girl work for?
Are you afraid?
Of course I'm afraid. You think I'm reluctant because I'm happy? Who are our employers?
I'm not under any obligation to let you know.
If you are not, then the price has got to go up.
It's not going to happen.
The girl sold us out. We're following the wrong people.
Get in the car!
From director John Frankenheimer, Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Natasha McElhone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, and Jonathan Pryce.
I won't hurt you.
Ronin.
You worried about saving your own skin?
Yeah, I am. Covers my body.
Meet me halfway.
Everybody, welcome to Shat on TV.
Grab that special lady, bring her to the dance floor.
Yeah, just
Why's it got to be a lady?
Bring that special someone.
There you go.
Making eyes across the bar.
We are recording.